We are live.
Live Senate Appropriations April 2nd. And we have. These are still our last FY27. We're talking, what are we talking about? No, we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Which is part of that. So we have the Agency of Natural Resources Secretary for this. I will let you introduce yourself to the record and give us your presentation.
Thank you. I am just working to join the Zoom. And then. Oh, here we go. Probably opened 28 times now. I apologize. It hasn't come yet. Oh, here it goes. I'll just be more patient and stop clicking.
Yeah, take an elevator.
Yep. Or the button that we want to cross the road.
Yeah.
So while that connects. Now it's happening. Absolutely. So for the record, I'm Julie Moore. I'm the Secretary of Natural Resources. And I'm joined today by the agency's Chief Financial Officer, Steve Gomez. And I'm going to hopefully do two things in this presentation. First, I'm going to walk you through some high-level agency points, and then speak specifically to the budget in the Secretary's office. So just a couple of notes that I wanted to flag ahead of time. We submitted complete budget presentations to the committee based on the guidance provided by House and Senate Appropriations in October. What I'm going to walk you through here is a shortened version of that aligns with our allotted time, but all of that information does exist, and happy to answer questions about it if you have made any notes in the margins and it's something I didn't touch on. We're going to talk about the governor's recommend, recognizing that the House version differs from the governor's recommend. There are 7 differences between the governor's recommend and the House passed version of the budget, and we can flag those as we go through our testimony. And then just a quick update on federal funding, which is not much of an update in that most federal funds used by ANR were level funded. We just now have confirmation of that, whereas before it had been an assumption. There were a few small increases. The Urban and Community Forestry Program that is administered by the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, and our state wildlife grants and FPR both saw a couple % increase, and also congressionally directed spending is back in the federal 26 budget. And that does have a pretty significant impact on the state revolving loan fund administered by DEC. The dollars coming to Vermont are relatively consistent, but we end up with things that go out as loans or grants, instead of loans, which means long-term it starts to diminish the capacity of that fund. So with that as context, 8,000 screens open. I can't. I'm pushing out. Okay. There we go. All right. So ANR's FY27 budget. So talk a little bit about the budget development cycle and the instructions we received from finance and management, how that lands in terms of the agency. We'll walk you through our FY27 budget and then talk about funding sources. This isn't the right presentation, sweetie. I grabbed the wrong thing. Sorry, that's not what I want to talk to you about at all. I apologize. Oh, that's fine. That was super getting it. Take two. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our mission and organizational structure, the prior fiscal year appropriation update, and then get into our budget, as well as at the back of this deck, there is a whole set of slides I do not intend to cover in 30 minutes today, since there's 44 in total. That includes a lot of the reports we've been asked to produce by Joe Fiscal. So just looking at the agency's budget as a whole, our FY27 budget is just shy of $300 million. About 2/3 of that is in the Department of Environmental Conservation. And that is large, body of work is largely comprised of grants, contracts, and loans for municipalities, partners, and businesses. The little dark green wedge at the top, along with the olive wedge next to it, are the two pieces that actually sit within the secretary's office. The pilot payments we make for those towns where we have state-owned lands, and then the actual work of the secretary's office. I do think it's worthwhile to just look briefly at how we deploy those dollars, because a lot of the money the agency budgets ends up going right back out the door. We invest about $40 million a year in contracts. These take various forms, including maintenance at parks and at fishing access areas, construction contracts as we need to bring new buildings online, and some of the assets we own, as well as improvements to dams. And over half of that $40 million goes directly to Vermont businesses. We issue about $59 million in grants, the lion's share of which goes to Vermont entities, and largely those go to municipalities and non-government organizations. And then we make about $65 million worth of loans, primarily out of our state revolving funds for clean water and drinking water. We have just over 680 full-time staff at the agency, and then bring on an additional 400 during the summer months when we are operating the state parks. And as you can see, about half of our budget is going right back out the door, and then half is the staff and the operating costs for the agency. I think this chart is really telling. A&R has been, I would say, a disproportionate beneficiary of some of the federal funding programs that have existed over the last several years. So the four wedges at the bottom of this graph are sort of what I would consider our base funding. And on an annualized basis, the general funds, special funds, which is a lot of our permit fees, fishing license sales, park gate receipts, and then federal funds. And then that dark green mountain shaped wedge at the top is the bipartisan infrastructure law. And so you can see it was a pretty dramatic scale up, and we've sort of crested and on our way back down. And that's reflected in the, not just that green wedge, but the agency's total budget. That is $341 million for the current fiscal year. And as I said, just shy of $300 million for the next fiscal year. This was entirely anticipated. We hired a significant number of limited service positions to help support the implementation of these dollars. I would offer that I think we've been incredibly successful in their deployment, and getting that work out, or the money out the door, and that work done on the ground. And so we will be working to wind that down over the next 2 fiscal years.
And those limited service positions will be eliminated.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a two-step. As you may recall, the agency also received about $300 million worth of ARPA funds. There was a considerable overlap between some of the ARPA funded investments that began in 2021 and then the investments we made under the bipartisan infrastructure law in the water infrastructure space. We ended up hiring sort of fewer ARPA staff, but have extended them into supporting the bipartisan infrastructure law. But yes, anticipate most of those positions will wind down between now and the end of next calendar year. And then there's a small number of positions that will remain on after that, largely because we have audit obligations and other things.
How many positions is that?
Are you able to say, Steve?
I can check, yeah.
Okay, the ones that will be retained past the end of.
How many will not be retained?
Oh, of the 50-ish that we hired across ARPA and bipartisan infrastructure law, I believe by the end of next calendar year, there will be about a half a dozen that remain on staff. So, and people in those positions have generally been moving into permanent classified positions with the agency as they become available. And really our challenge is now that there's a relatively short shelf life on those positions, making them harder to fill, just trying to make sure that we're being smart about who moves where, when, and that we can finish the successful deployment of these dollars.
Thanks.
So in terms of our FY27 budget, that decrease is really being driven by and large by winding down bipartisan infrastructure law funds. But there are other budget changes that are of note. We're seeing about $6.5 million across the agency of upward pressure in salaries, wages, and benefits. There is an increase in our internal service funds allocation. On one hand, a decrease for insurance specifically, and this is, I think in the park system, we saw a substantial decrease in insurance, but we also gave back that general fund. So it was effectively neutral to our budget. We did see a significant increase resulting from the new ADS billing model across the agency. As I noted, our federal funding is relatively flat, although Forest Legacy had seen significant funding through the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law. That's money we use for large land conservation projects. And that is less and less available. The funding that had been budgeted by Congress there has largely been exhausted. We have proposed to decrease our draws on the petroleum cleanup fund to try to maintain solvency in that fund. Just recognizing, I think we're not immune to some of the same forces acting on the Agency of Transportation's budget. And then we did see small decreases in our air quality division. And Commissioner Sinsagali can talk more about that when she is in front of you later this afternoon.
So to maintain solvency, you're just less money going out.
Less money coming in, less money going out. Yeah. So now I'm going to shift gears and talk specifically about the Secretary's office. So just for reference, of the 680-ish positions within the agency, 43 of them are in the Secretary's office. So myself and the deputy, along with our Civil Rights and Environmental Justice Unit. We also have our policy and planning shop that includes both the team that represents the agency in Act 250 and Section 248 proceedings, as well as our climate action office. The Office of General Counsel, which is all of the agency's attorneys, report up through Catherine Guessing, but are on paper in the Secretary's office. And then we have a Chief Operating Officer who Steve works with as he leads our Financial and Administrative Services Division. And as you may know, we also have 5 regional offices, and that's where the management of those facilities sits as well. So in terms of major federal funding sources, one that is being managed outside the Secretary's office is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. That was part of the Inflation Reduction Act. Vermont received a $3 million non-competitive planning grant award back in 2023. While there has been some rescission at the federal level of other CPRG funds, these planning grants have been left in place. And so that we have used this funding to update and improve our greenhouse gas inventory, to help support development of the climate action plan that was adopted by the Vermont Climate Council this summer. As of the drafting of this presentation a little earlier this winter, we had expended about 1.4 of the $2.5 million. We expended 1.4 and it encumbered 1.1 million of the $3 million, meaning we have about $500,000 left, but expect to fully encumber those dollars by the end of the current fiscal year, giving us about a year to complete the work. We have had a series of one-time appropriations, and we're asked to provide brief updates on those. The first one is related to climate change. This is the Climate Superfund Act. We received $300,000 for a limited service position. As you may know, the Treasurer's Office is actively working on the cost assessment, and then our work is to think through how those costs actually become allocated across the different responsible entities. So we've been kind of holding those funds close, waiting for the treasurer to complete their work so that then we can turn around and we'll hire a physician to actually do the that math about how to attribute the different how to attribute those costs to the different sources. I just would flag here, we did indicate that there is need for additional contracted support for us to really do this work and do it well. In particular, a new attorney position with the Office of General Counsel, and would just be remiss if I didn't flag that we continue to see substantial workload related to litigation on the climate superfund bill. There was a case argued down in Rutland earlier this week, but there are a number of other outstanding legal challenges that require our participation. So then just thinking about how that breaks out across the Secretary's office, about a little less than half of our budget is in the Legal Services Division. That Natural Resources Fund is sort of a catch-all that includes our Act 250 and Section 248 work, as well as the pilot payments. The Finance and Administration team that Steve leads, our Climate Action Office, and then the smaller appropriations from my team in the Secretary's office, our Office of Policy and Planning, our Civil Rights and Environmental Justice Unit, and then the budget we need to maintain our regional offices. Just trying to move this, make sure I can see. So this is the same sort of look at the upward pressures that I gave you across the agency. This is the part that's specific to the Secretary's office. So we did see a net increase in salaries, including the addition of a staff attorney position. There was money made available to us under the under the bipartisan infrastructure law to expand compliance related activities for prior grant recipients for the Land and Water Conservation Fund monies. So these are parcels of conserved land all around the state, and have this additional staff attorney position that can help us review those.
These are the governor's recommendations, not the House budget.
Correct. These are governor's recommended. We are seeing upward pressure in our internal service funds, and including ADS. We were able to save about $40,000 in terms of space management. And then we moved a small ongoing grant to Drive Electric Vermont that had been run out of our air quality division and moved it into the climate office because it seemed to make the most sense there. Our pilot appropriations increased by about $6,000 from FY26 to FY27. And that's really determined based on land acquisitions. We look at the queue of conservation projects we anticipate completing in FY27 and making that estimate. There will be a larger update to how we determine the pilot rates we pay to communities. That is also due next year. And if there's interest, Steve can speak about that in more detail. But this number is really just looking at additional acres, not any change in how we value those elements.
Do you know what the total Drive Electric grant is a 5K increase?
That is the total grant. It's just a 5K increase in our budget.
Oh, right, because there's not other, because we talked about it on the transportation committee, so.
That I guess I don't know if there's additional money provided by the transportation agency. That is the sum total of the money out of the agency of natural resources. And then included in the PowerPoint presentation are a bunch of links to other reports you may wish to avail yourselves of. And I will stop there and happy to answer any questions you might have, either about the agency budget or the Secretary's office.
I don't know if this is in the central office or secretary. It's a central office, the same as the secretary. Or maybe it's a question for DC. It's about the emissions repair program. Should I wait till DC is in here?
I'm happy to speak to that.
So the House reverted it, but in the Gresham or Secretary Clark's letter, it talked about how the money was obligated. So I don't know if you could talk us through that.
Sure. So and Steve will clean up whatever mess I may make here. But there was about $600,000 appropriated. Of that, we had put about $200,000 into contracts with two Vermont-based entities that eligible applicants could then access to try to effect a vehicle repair, and needed about $35,000 to cover our admin costs associated with that money. The House unfortunately pulled all $600,000 back, whereas we had indicated there was about $365,000 that could be reappropriated. It's a little bit of a challenging moment for that program. I know that there was some concern expressed that we hadn't seen a lot of uptake in that grant. But DMV had been issuing, and you may be aware of this, I had been issuing waivers for a period of years, and that waiver language expired at the beginning of this year. So we anticipate going forward, we will see more interest in this grant repair program than we have in the past. And so while the past financials may not speak to the need for that program, we are concerned that there will be future interest. And so really had recommended at least leaving that $200,000 that's already in existing contract agreements in place.
Yeah, there was a lot of problems with that program when we switched to the tablet system and the person were using that. And so I think they were giving a lot of waivers. So
Correct.
it'd be interesting if how many errors of people we make use of. It was something I know the Transportation Committee felt strongly about, that we had that program so people weren't losing their ability to drive illegally because of a small repair.
Correct. I believe today we've issued less than 10 grants out of that program. So there hasn't been a lot of interest, but I think it is because people were able to obtain waivers.
And in House, so some of these questions are about the House budget, that I saw references to the Volkswagen settlement. Is there still money in there?
There is.
What's happening with it?
So we're getting to the end of the period where those funds have to be spent down, or they will need to be reverted to the National Trust. The legislature, when giving us the spending authority for those funds early on, had asked us to limit them to electric vehicle purchases as opposed to sort of clean diesel technology, even though that's allowed under the VW Trust. Our proposal is to sort of give back that flexibility so that we could support clean diesel projects. We would still continue to prioritize electric vehicle purchases and incentives before we would get into clean diesel, but this would hopefully allow us to avoid needing to revert any of those funds back into the National Trust.
That's why you had to strike electric system. Thank you. Any other questions?
Any mistakes I made?
Good. No, I was just wondering how much money is in there? Did you just?
Do you remember, Steve? We can get that and get back to you. It's not an insignificant sum. So it's not money we would like to return, especially because the challenge has been, I think, in purchasing heavy duty electric vehicles. There aren't a lot of options out there. Whereas there are some really good clean diesel options, and we would love those have maybe not as much benefit, but not insignificant benefits, particularly in the public health space and reducing particulate matter. And so we'd love to see those investments made if possible.
Right. Well, thank you.
Saw Danny joined. Got a couple of us, but no other commissioners.
FPR next.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, and Steve wears two hats at the agency currently. He is both the chief financial officer and the acting FPR business manager. So I may turn to Steve. Right over to him.
Oh, no, I thought you got the fund. Can you get a penny per gallon? So it's just like the reduction of the price doesn't matter. I think on the fund, right? It's just per gallon.
Correct. That is my understanding. It's a bit tricky.
You ready, Commissioner Fitzko?
Yes, hi. Good to see everybody. Daniel Fitzko, Commissioner Forest Parks and Recreation. I apologize for not being there in person today. I'm out of state. I'm also joined by, with Steve Gomez. Um, he's actually not acting anymore, but still playing a heavy role. We just filled our director of finance and administration. Uh, Monday they started, Naomi Fury. So we're pretty excited about that. Okay for me to just get right into it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, fantastic. Just trying to move my screen. Okay, so like all the other departments in the secretary's office, we have a lot of slides in our um, presentation for you, but only a few of them will be highlighted. And this is sort of the overview of all the slides that are in there. We'll touch mainly on what's new and a department budget overview, but there's a lot more detail in our division budgets if you want to see more details. Um, just for a very quick intro to FPR, where I think you all know us pretty well, but we are what our name says. We're a forest, keeping our green mountains green, helping to sustain them, make sure they're sustainably managed, intact, and healthy. Also supports all the benefits of forests, from climate resilience, biodiversity, clean water and air, and also our forest economy, which contributes about 14,000 jobs to Vermont and brings in about 1.2 billion in economic activity. We also are Vermont State Parks, bringing in about 1 million visitors a year to the state park system, really offering affordable outdoor recreation and vacations for both Vermonters and visitors. And we are also outdoor recreation, advancing the sector that actually represents 4.8% of Vermont's GDP. So for every dollar of economic activity in Vermont, about 5% of that can be attributed to outdoor recreation. But beyond sort of the economic component of it, it supports local businesses, rural communities, and also our physical, mental health, and quality of life. When I think about FPR, I think what we represent is a lot of Vermont's identity, helping to steward our natural landscape and supporting communities, families, and future generations. This is an overview of the high level of how we're organized. You have myself at the top. You have our principal assistant, Kate Eberly. I just want to call her out because she plays a key role in legislative affairs. So I'm sure you've seen her or have met her in the State House. We have 3 programmatic divisions. We have the Division of Forests that's led by Oliver Pearson. We have State Parks that's led by Nate McKean, and we have Lands Administration and Recreation that's led by Becca Washburn. And then we have our administrative arm with our new director, Naomi Fury. I look at that branch as like the circulatory system of our department. We move a lot in FPR, and without them, we couldn't do all we do. We have about 144 year-round staff, and then in the summertime, when we're operating state parks and all of the work we're doing on state lands in general, we bring in about 450 seasonal employees. So we are in major recruitment right now. So if anybody has family members, friends, grandkids that need a job, we're looking and hiring. This slide just gives you an update on some items that were funded last year. Last year, we did have one-time funds of $200,000 that went to Serve, Learn, Earn. I'm sure you're all familiar with this wonderful program that supports workforce development. We also last year did get $500,000 in base dollars that we do have again this year. So that will be going to Serve, Learn, Earn if the budget's approved, stays in there. On the House side, for this year, for next year, for FY27, there is a line item for Serve, Learn, Earn for a one-time fund of $300,000, just to make you aware of that. Also, last year, we really appreciate the support. You provided one-time funding so FPR could get a wildland fire truck, which is a Type 6 fire engine. We actually just closed the RFP on purchasing the fire truck yesterday. We did get a couple bids in, so we will be moving forward soon with contracting out to get this fire truck built and working on the ground for us. I think
When
I'll
you-
stop there because that's sort of recap from last year. See if anybody has any questions.
When do you expect the truck to be operational?
Well, probably will take about a year to be built. It's quite a long process. It took us a while to even get the RFP out. It's not like we can go down, like I said, to the like local car shop or fire
Yeah.
engine shop to purchase it. So we anticipate probably a year from now we'll have the engine.
Wasn't it 2 fiscal years ago that we funded it?
You funded it last year.
It was just last year. I remember talking a lot about it. Yeah, I just thought it was too.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we had as you probably are really aware, with the intense drought that we had last year, we had a pretty active fire season. So it'll be really good to have this resource available for us in the future.
Wasn't there a grassland fire just like last week?
There was 3 fires at least I know of last week. Yes, spring and fall are 2 sort of higher risk areas, times of the year.
Okay. And do you have any, can you say about federal funds that you may not get in the future?
Um,
That you
Right
rely-
now, we don't. So far, the federal funding that we've had for previous years has been sustained. Of course, we don't know what the future holds. The president's supposed to put out his budget this week, and then through Congress, we'll see. But so far, we've been held out okay, which is great.
Yeah.
Another item in the governor's budget is one-time funds for the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative for our grants program. These have been really successful grants that we've been able to provide to support really economic development in communities around recreation. They are really in high demand grants. Actually, in FY, I think it was in 2025, we had a grant round that had $6 million available, and we had $13 million that went unfunded in request and $70 million. 70 grants that we could not fund. So there's definitely a demand out there, which tells me there's still a lot of opportunity and communities are ready to really advance their outdoor recreation economy. I look at these grants as revenue generating because they really do support downtown businesses and bringing in tourism and downtown activity.
Do you know if that was included in the House bill?
It was included in the House bill. Yep.
Is
To
it-
date, we've actually funded 85 projects in all 14 counties. And if you look at the map that we have up here, you can kind of see, all the areas that have had VORAC investments.
Do you do that in-house or do you have like a VORAC board or advisory committee of some sort?
Yeah, we had the VORAC program is housed in FPR, which is a partnership between Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And it is a governor initiative. And we do have a steering committee of 20 members that help guide the VORAC grants and selection.
Okay.
Yeah, really active and engaged community there. It's working well.
Great.
This is just to give you 2 examples of some projects that were funded with VORAC grants. There was a $400 grant that the town of Waitsfield received, and this was really to provide accessible access to trails and making it accessible to get from the recreation infrastructure to downtown. So they really looked at street crossings and any areas where we could actually build sort of that connection to outdoor recreation. The picture here of this bridge was put in with these funds and actually accessed additional 60 miles of trails. So it really is meant to be sort of a connection from downtown to the recreation trails, and even including sort of a gateway stop where you can learn about the businesses and all the trail networks in the community. So it's really been successful. A lot of partners involved in helping to steward these trails and all the investments going forward. We've also had an investment in Danville, just under $100,000, and this was to transform their train station into a recreation hub that sits on the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. It is meant to be sort of that transportation hub again, but really thinking about recreation and their downtown. They added some ADA accessible amenities to the train station and really are trying to drive people from the recreation outset access to their downtowns. And a lot of the business are reporting increased sales due to the trail uses, and they're really entering the village. So again, really an economic driver in our communities, and it's a $500,000 one-time request that is in the House side of in the House budget that was recommended by the governor. Any questions on Boric?
Nope.
Okay. Also in the governor's recommend, there is some proposed language. This still sits in the budget bill that came from the House side. And this is looking at our Lands and Facilities Trust Fund. This is a fund that the revenue comes from uses of state lands. So if you think about timber sales or leases and licensed commercial use on state lands, and so that there's a fund that we use, that we have, and we use some of it to help steward state lands. The language that we have proposed really does three things. It aligns the fund management with statute. Where it currently sits in statute is underneath the Agency of Natural Resources, but a lot of the language points to Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. So this is really a technical fix to change it to the Agency of Natural Resources. The second item that we're trying to do is clarify the eligible uses. Right now, it's mostly about management and stewardship, and we'd like to add administrative costs as well. A lot of the funds that we use on the ground are contracted out work. So we bring in contractors to do the work for us on the ground, and that takes a lot of administrative work. So we'd like to use a small portion to support the administrative costs of moving these dollars. And then modernize the distribution rate. Currently we're able to use 5% of the interest rolling. I'm gonna try, Steve. 5% of the interest over 5 years, and we'd like to move that to 8%. The current balance in the Lands and Facilities Trust Fund is about $6.25 million. We feel like the health of the account is at a good place right now, that even if moving it to 8%, and based on our uses of state land, that fund would still increase. And we anticipate by 2034 that there'd be $7 million in this account. So we'd like to be able to use more funds to put that on the ground, to add use a little bit of funds for administrative costs, and then do some technical corrections by changing it from FPR to A&R. I just want to give you an idea of like what this funds. But is there a question?
Yeah, so you're projecting an 8% rate of return on that fund?
No, so the construct here is basically with the earned revenue from the state lands, the interest collected on the fund, and then there's a small amount of donations that come to the fund, usually for stewardship endowments. Based on our recipe, essentially that would generate about $568,000 of revenue between those different revenue sources. And then bringing us up to that 8%, it's budgeted at $437,000. So we would still have an annual surplus of funds that would go towards that principal. So that longer term, like we would still continue to grow the fund, it would just be slower.
And because that 500 whatever thousand is your annual projections for revenue, or just next year? And that is request for 1 year or going forward? This is a permanent request. So the projection for the $568,000, that's FY27. And then in out years, there's a modest, like we assume a 1% growth on earned revenues, a 1% growth on donations, and we assume a 5% interest rate, basically annual return. So the fund, the $568,000 would grow each fiscal year out. So what's the interest, you know, what you're earning on in this?
Yeah. Yeah, the last 3 years, according to the treasurer's report, the 3-year average has been 10%. You know, so that's on the higher end compared, you know, going back and looking at, was it the 10-year average? We were, let's see, we were a little bit over 5% over 10 years, so.
And where is this request located?
Yep, so this request is, I can send you the exact place in the budget bill, but it's part of the governor's recommend concurred in the House. So it's, but the actual language section, I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's just in the language section.
It's in the language section, yes, and then there's a complementary piece in FPR's budget where they're assuming the increase in revenues. Part of that would go to cover the administrative costs, and then the rest would go to deploying those dollars on the ground.
So mainly the increased distribution is coming from increased revenue from the use of state land.
I would say that when this fund started, you know, we're starting at 0. So now that was kind of like a check-in period, and with that large fund balance of $6.5 million, we're generating real interest there now. So I would say it's a combination of that piece and then also the earned annual revenue from that. So.
Is there any language that the distributions can't just shrink the corpus?
There is no language there, but so just as a recognition, you know, the way that FPR manages this fund, you know, they've had the authority to go up to the 5% of the fund. Many years it's budgeted under that because they're trying to continue to grow the fund. So again, this is right, like part of the balance is the department, you know, if they have the authority to go up to 8% and the interest rate last year was like 1%, right? Like that we would have to adjust that just like we do with all of our other special funds. So
I might be interested in proposing language that limits going below, not taking any of the corpus. Like if there's enough extra revenue, they go to 8%, but not if the returns in there or some reason that revenue isn't there. So you're not digging into the 6.25.
So essentially locking like the 6.25 as like a baseline and yeah.
Senator Watson.
Well, no, when we met and talked about this, I had a lot of questions about the same construct and asked some of these same questions. And I would just say I'm interested in something like that, you know, thinking about like if the rate of return isn't what was projected, you know, then maybe that triggers something else, or maybe it can't dig into the
higher ed trust fund has language like that, so it could be based on the language that's to that. Like they can get 5% for the state colleges and UVM, but only if it doesn't decrease the corpus. Senator Lyons, did you also have a question?
I do. It's not about this, but it's maybe related. But my question is, are you responsible for the leases to the ski areas for state land?
Yes, FPR is responsible. Commissioner Fitzgerald, I'll turn that one over to you.
Yes, we are responsible for the leases on state lands. It does not go into the Lands and Facilities Trust Fund. It goes into the Park Special Fund. And that helps to operate Vermont State Parks.
So, and my question is, when's the last time that those lease conditions were updated? I'm concerned about some of the leases that we have in the state where huge expansion has taken place at our ski areas, but I'm not sure the state is benefiting adequately from that expansion.
Yeah, so our ski leases are really long-term leases. Most of them are 40 to like 60 years. The first lease that's going to come up for renewal is Bromley in 2032. Anytime we have an opportunity, if there's a change in ownership, we try to make some modernization of the lease, but it hasn't changed any of the payment provisions. I will share with you right now that we do have a contractor in place that is looking at how ski leases are how they're reporting out and paying on their ski lease, because the thing that's changed since these ski leases were put in place is that used to just be you buy a pass to one mountain. Now they're multi-resort passes, and we just want to get clarity on how those are being calculated. But anytime there is an opportunity, we do look at modernizing where we can. And right now, we're looking at Bromley in 2032 will be the first real overhaul of a ski lease.
So I guess at some point, it would be good to have more information about this and understand exactly what is in what clauses are in the lease agreements. I look at the expansion that's taking place both at Stowe and Killington and the exceptional revenue that is being pushed out of state. And I have a huge concern about that. And with all the work that the state has done, understood, does bring tourism, it does bring money into the state. At the same time, it doesn't fill the general fund or special funds that we have. So I
Right.
always express this concern. So it would be helpful to know if there's anything in any of those leases that allows for us to do course correction.
Yeah, we happy to provide you some more background on our leases with ski resorts. We have our director of lands administration and recreation is very in tune with this. I will say that when the Killington had their expansion, we did see an increase in the revenue coming to the state based on that. Particularly even like the World Cup, when that happens, we do see more revenue coming to the state, which goes directly to Park Special Fund.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for that. I understand that we do benefit. It's the balance of how we benefit versus the private enterprise.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and it's based on how much of the actual ski lifts are on state land and what buildings are on state land. So they all are a little bit different, but we're happy to give you a background on that and help answer any questions.
Thank
Senator
you.
Watson has.
Yes, thank you. On that same topic, and Kate is here also, I just want to flag that I'm also interested in the leases with ski resorts. And so I'm interested in some of the conditions that might be in some of those. So anyway, would love to, it doesn't have to be the same meeting, but would love to connect at some point about that topic.
Yep, absolutely. Just because they're on state land, we do have district stewardship teams, which are interdisciplinary teams within the Agency of Natural Resources that help to steward those lands. So they have to get approval for work with us, and we have annual meetings with them. So we really do have a close partnership with the ski resorts, making sure that they're maintaining sort of the health and integrity of the lands as well as bringing in the revenue portion of it. But happy to set up those times if you want us to come into committee or do a side meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
If I could just add one thing for folks' awareness, it is a percentage of the revenue generated, just so it does scale with the scale of the enterprise, at least in terms of the portion of it that's on state lands. But I think the audit that Danny spoke to is really important because it's always been 5% of sales. But now when you have these passes where people are skiing at all different areas, what are we expecting to receive 5% of?
The sale could have been in Colorado.
My question.
Correct. Who might spend 12 skier days at Stowe, right?
Right.
Do we get a percentage of a sale of a pass that occurred at one of Vail's resorts in Colorado? So this audit, I think, will be really important, and ensuring that each of the ski areas with these multi-resort passes is calculating 5% the same way is the goal of the audit too.
Okay, Danny, we have more minutes.
Yep, that work's ongoing now. This just gives you an idea of how we use the funds from the Lands and Facility Trust Fund on the ground project, sort of core land stewardship, thinking about hazard tree removals, forest health, and then also some workforce. We bring on a state trails crew and supporting some seasonal staff. So that just gives you an idea of how we deploy those funds to steward state lands. I understand we want a quick update on ARPA. FPR received $3.3 million in ARPA. We had 3 targeted areas. One was to support the 3-acre stormwater management in state parks. We have 19 out of our 55 state parks that triggered the 3-acre stormwater permit. We also had funds to support urban tree planting and community canopy, so tree giveaway, and then parks major maintenance projects. Pretty much as of December 31st, we had just under $90,000 that remained unspent. That's probably all spent out by now. So we are absolutely on track to spending down all of our ARPA funds.
Great.
I'll pass it to you, Steve, for the next ones.
Yeah, so this is a really high level overview of the department's overall budget. So if you're look at kind of the top part of the graph, the major object that identifies expenditures for the department. So a few things I'll flag. One is you'll notice that the overall there's a decrease from FY26 to FY27. The main reason for that has to do with land acquisition, the budget there. So those budgets fluctuate greatly from year to year. So if we were to exclude land acquisitions from the budget, how it would look is you'd see about a $3 million year-over-year increase. It'd be about 6.5%. So I wanted to just provide that context because it does look a little bit odd. Also, some of the major changes happening across those major objects. One has to do with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So that's on a every other year cycle where 1 year the dollars stay focused on state lands, and then the other year they go out as grants. So in FY27, what you're seeing here is a large increase in personal services, which represents an increase in contracts for work on state lands. You're seeing a large decrease in grants because there's fewer grants going out into that program. And then the large change in operating expenses is due to the land acquisition budget. And then overall for the department, about a quarter of the budget's general fund, a third's park special fund, and then a third federal funds. And those are the main revenue sources for the department.
What's the increase in the clean water fund?
Not
Not a lot of dollars.
Yeah, not a lot of dollars. Commissioner Fitzko, was that the water quality road access? The clean
Yeah,
water fund?
additional funds. We have 600 miles of roads on state lands, and we are implementing work to put in best management practices to protect water quality.
So you just added more money to the budget to deal with this. Does that work?
Yeah, it's part of the clean water forwarding budget process. So yeah, through that process, it was a recommendation for an increase.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of it was a shift from funds that we used to be in capital that are now in this in this side of the ledger.
So yeah, so taking a look at kind of the by each division in the department, this is how the budget breaks down. So you can see that on the left-hand side there, state parks is the largest share at 37%. That is mainly focused on the cost of managing those places and then the permanent and temporary staff. The land administration and recreation division, their focus is on everything FPR and state in our own lands, and then also programs like BOREC. That's 29% of the overall budget for the department. The forestry division, you can think about UVA, urban and community forestry, those sorts of programs. That's 27% of the overall budget. They also have the largest full-time position count in the department. And then the 6% there is for the administration division. So that's the commissioner's office and business office functions. And then the very bottom right-hand corner, there's no label there, but there's 0.4%, $229,000 for, again, forest access roads. And then looking at the key budget changes for the department. So there's the normal increase in internal service funds. So this is for things like human resources, vision, which is the state accounting system, those sorts of things. There's a $131,000 increase. There's the large decrease that Secretary Moore mentioned. So this is mainly for state parks. There was a large increase post the July 2023 floods with insurance claims. Since this is kind of, again, this cyclic nature, depends on kind of the claim rate. So now that there were fewer claims in a out year, there's a large decrease, but also the general fund dollars went with that. So there was no net benefit to FPR, even though there was a decrease in that cost. And then for FPR, their share of the increase of the ADS billable services was $424,000. Looking at federal and program investments, we already touched on the clean water budget piece. IRA Growing Forest Resilience grant. That's a $1.1 million increase that's within the forestry division. And then there's $160,000 increase for ash borer mitigation, which is basically tree removal. And Commissioner Fisco, that's in the state parks budget. Correct?
Yes. That's right.
So that's focused on state parks. And then at the bottom of it, the other main changes, again, you'll see in the middle there, that's the land acquisition. So again, that's decreasing the budget for land acquisitions overall. There was $1 million decrease for completed projects. So this is money that flowed into the department, was spent, and now that project is closing out. And then last is the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Again, this is the cycle where 1 year the money stays focused on FPR, state-owned lands, and then the other year it goes out to in the grant cycle. So for FY27, we're in an in-house cycle. So you'll see that shift between contracts and grants overall.
Any questions for Steve on this slide? All right, me?
No, doesn't look like it.
Okay, I think that's really it for us. It's either just a link to all the reports. Happy to answer any questions. Certainly will follow up on ski leases. Appreciate your time.
I have one quick question. What is the IRA? What was it called? The IRA Forest Springs?
Oh,
I'm happy to do that one, Steve. This was a $5 million competitive grant that FPR received in our private lands program. It is funding that will support working with private forest landowners, foresters, loggers. It's going to be developing resilience strategies for the state, thinking about the health and future of our forests. That's going to be working with UVM. There'll be funding for development of resilient forest resilience plans for landowners, and also implementation dollars that would support resilient strategies that would go to loggers, so that in addition to harvesting timber, they could be doing introduced invasive plant removal and other practices. It's going to have a certification program for both loggers and foresters that they're resilience certified. So it's really a comprehensive grant that's going to be looking at how do we manage our forests for timber products, but also be thinking about resiliency strategies going forward. So this is the $1 million is what we anticipate spending in FY27. There'll be more years ahead to continue to implement this grant.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Forest and Parks? Or Parks and Forests?
Thank you for your work.
Yes.
Thank you all. Sorry I'm not there. I hope to see you in the hallway soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there was nothing in I was gonna ask questions about, there wasn't anything that the House did to your budget.
there was one item they added, a one-time appropriation for the Serve When the Nerd program for $300,000. So that's in the House passed version. Yes.
That goes through.
That's administered by FPR. Yeah, so they have a base appropriation, in FY20 for plan for FY27 of $500,000. So this would be plussing up that base appropriation. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
On that note, your way. Okay.
Thank you.
DC.
Good afternoon.
Definitely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you can shut the door, please. Thank you.
Got Tracy on the. Hi, Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
Good afternoon.
Close my shades real quick.
All right. For the record, Misty Sinscali, Commissioner for the Department of Environmental Conservation. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. joined today by Deputy Commissioner Kingman, and then our financial director with Administration Innovation Division, which is Tracy LaFrance, who is going to also be manning the PowerPoint for us today. So, so in alignment with the budget testimony instructions, our goal today is to provide you kind of clear understanding of our priorities, given the depth of our department. The 51 slides that was in our original slide deck, we pared down for us to get through. The 51 slides are available. If there's questions today or in the future, we welcome them, whether it be in writing or how to document, and to answer those questions.
We'll appreciate you reading the budget instructions.
Let's say that.
Our struggle was to interpret how much of all of it to give you. You have it all, but.
Yeah, the instructions are the same for the House and the Senate. House needs more information, has more time to go through it.
All, thank you. And like I said, feel free to, we're going to focus today on our main budget drivers. And really, a lot of that includes the tapering of our federal infrastructure funds that you'll see when we go through. But we structured the presentation to highlight those shifts and then to welcome any questions. That's what we're here for. So we'll start with kind of the main slides. The first slide is just kind of the overview of what we're going to talk about today. Mission, department structure, budget overview, kind of what's new, those key budget changes, appropriation budgets, prior fiscal year, appropriation update, and then there'll be a slide that has those reports and other information. We'll get through as much as we can today, but please feel free at any time to jump in and ask questions. Down, so our department mission, it's always good to remind ourselves that we're here to preserve, enhance, restore, and conserve Vermont's natural resources and protect human health for the benefit of this and future generations. Going down to the next slide. So how we do this, we have 9 different divisions, and within those 9 different divisions, you will see that we've included our total authorized positions, which is 351 on that. So in order to meet our mission and to do that, we have our 9 divisions. The colors are broken out by the appropriations, and we'll walk through each one of those divisions and the budget for that in the next couple slides. We can go on to the next one. So here's kind of just our budget overview. You get that, okay? Budget overview. Breakdown of salary and benefits, operating expenses, contracts, grants, loans by division. So the management and support services appropriations are the top 2. And then our media programs are on the bottom. So some big numbers, especially in our water and investment division, which is the bottom of the table. You'll see that the bulk of that is managing the federal and state funds. So thinking Infrastructure and Jobs Act, or IIJA, and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Bill. So American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. So they really do that issuance of that money goes through and out the door to our communities. And you'll see that that is mainly passed through. It makes that 92% of their budget, a big part of that. And those funds are winding down. As well as the drinking water and groundwater protecting division also see some of those funds move through theirs. I'm going to stop for a second and ask if there are any questions on this slide or any of our issues.
The water investment division, you said a different name.
Sorry, the water investment division.
Is that always called water investment division?
That was created, to Neil Cameron for the record, Deputy Commissioner. That was created in 2019. Coincident with the passage of the Act 76, which was sort of the second iteration of the Vermont Clean Water Act. Puts together all sort of water quality and water infrastructure funding and financing into one shop that's kind of designed their programs around moving those dollars to Vermonters.
When we started taking the some of the transfer tax money put towards it. That's what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's inside the Clean Water Fund, and a lot of those dollars are administered through the way.
And you'll see if we go down to the next slide, you'll see that you can see the breakdown of the budget, shown in the previous slide, and the magnitude of, we just said the Water Investment Division compared to the other divisions, and the amount of funds that move through that program. Their dollars are critical and move in the last 3 or 4 years with all of those federal funds that have moved through continue to be really a big part of the budget. So we'll see that start to go down starting next year. Because of
Geology is a teeny.
Yeah.
But they're mighty, Senator. They're mighty.
Small but mighty, that is very true.
Yeah, we enjoyed working with them a couple of years ago on the, what was that called? The plant survey. Remember.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep it going so that we know that there's no questions on that. Then we're going to look at the budget overview. So again, within A&R, DC is the largest budget. We did see an overall decrease from $245 million budgeted in fiscal year 26 to about $202 million in fiscal year 27. And that's the tapering of those federal funds, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, bipartisan infrastructure law funds passing through. We will, I would say, in the context of looking back to fiscal year 23, which is where we will probably get to after these federal funds move through, just to give you perspective that our DC, that was 117 million at that point. And so you've seen the growth probably hit its peak last year at the 245 and now start to taper back down. It's a lot of money moving through, a lot of great work that is getting done in our Vermont increase. So really this budget represents kind of a continuation of the current service for DEC with a few minor reductions. Again, primary reduction in the two particular programs are those federal funds, and a big portion also of the decrease that you see in these slides is in contracts related to BIL and IIJA money. So it's the money moving through to the communities, but also the contracting that has been done with the money that has tapered off.
Makes sense.
Any questions before we? All right. We're going to go down to ARPA and
Sure.
turn over the deputy to talk more about ARPA.
Sure, there's a substantial amount of interest, especially in the House Appropriations Committee side around the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Their tempo, their expenditures. I'm really pleased to report that we continue to do a good job moving those dollars out. That's all fine and good. But what's really important is the communities themselves are just pedal to the ground, getting those projects built. So those dollars take two forms. There's the American Rescue Plan Act federal funds, state and local fiscal recovery. There's the ARPA dollars that are now considered CARE General Fund. So we're tracking those projects separately. We consider them separate debt IDs and so forth, but we are tracking them both. Our initiatives, Commissioner Fitzgill mentioned a couple of her initiatives, her 3 initiatives there inside of the list we see on the screen here. I just want to kind of draw a circle around a couple other major ones. We'll have invested $30 million into remediating combined sewer overflows. So cities like Virgins and Burlington and Rutland and St. Johnsbury we are putting pipes in the ground to disconnect the stormwater that gets to the wastewater treatment plant. 3-acre stormwater, I think everybody in the building has a sensitivity to that. We put a lot of money into 3-acre stormwater to help individual homes and businesses. Really proud of the work in the Village Water Wastewater Program, where we are building new wastewater capacity for towns like Walcott, Londonderry, Montgomery. I can go on and on that. But the one I really want to draw a circle around and is tailing down now is the Healthy Homes Initiative. And that is one where we've been helping manufactured housing community residents to upgrade their infrastructure. Also, literally individual Vermonters that had incredibly inadequate septic systems. This program underscored kind of a bit of an underbelly that we didn't quite realize existed and have had major strides in addressing it. We all the way there know, but we've made a lot of progress. With $40 million in there, so it's really important work. Next slide, please.
So of the 190, how much is?
Sure, next slide, this one right here. So we've got 2 points in time, September and then December of the prior year. And then I've got up-to-date information as of the end of February. So we have on the state and local fiscal recovery funds expended 72 million of the 111. And we have a lot of projects at bid right now. So bids are out to build the Walcott facility, the Londonderry facility. So these are ones that are going to drop a lot of money very quickly as they go and finalize their construction. And there's a short leash on these. The other Cure General Fund, the pace is a little bit slower. And the reason it's a little bit slower is we identified which of those major investments had higher levels of risk that could upend their ability to fully expend the ARPA dollars. And we made sure and we used cured funding for those projects, maximize their ability to succeed. So while that's a large number under the encumbered, obligated, and as of yet expended, I can report to you that as of December 15th, that 13.9, as of the end of February, is up to 18. So, and this is winter time. We're not seeing a lot of expenditures on infrastructure construction. So we're doing pretty well with this. And it's, when I say we, again, I have to go back to the municipalities and the engineers and the committees that have made this work happen. It's happening out in the field and we're just trying to help. So I will be in House Appropriations to provide a deep dive whenever they invite me.
So like
happy to
30
do
or
the same.
40 million that hasn't been expended in the funds that have to be expended by the end of this year, December 26th, you feel confident.
I do, yeah, and I'm not only keeping very tight track of which projects I feel are developing risk, but I'm also keeping Doug Farnham, Chief Recovery Officer, kind of up to date on that. So yeah, we meet regularly to discuss these matters. You know, we really want what we want is just that money gets spent on those projects and everybody's happy. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I do have a question. It's just interesting from your last slide that you were, that it sounded like you all had made some discoveries like, oh, there's a real need here. And anyway, especially with this is something we can talk about in another time, but it would be interesting once this is done to, as just a part of the, conversation or reflection, like what came up, when we had a lot of money, what was some of the greatest need. And so, identifying like, oh, there was an unmet need there, and how do we work to address that in the future? Like that would be, I would love to have that conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
Sometime.
There's different learning in each of the different appropriations.
Sure.
We've learned different
Yeah.
things, where the bottlenecks are, where the challenges are, where the unmet needs are.
Yeah. Yeah, love to chat more about it.
All right, well,
Sure.
move on to the next slide. So these are really for us, the key budget changes this year. So like we said, the bipartisan infrastructure law winding down. It says it right there that you're going to see the decrease from 26 to 27. And really we see that for state fiscal year 27, it will be the final state fiscal year in which we expect to receive new IIJA and BIL. So the goal being that we can continue to get that money out the door, get those projects built in the future, because even though it's the last year that we receive funding, it will be multiple years of getting the dollars out the door and making sure that the projects actually get built.
Do you know when you're finished, how much more lead service line replacements would be needed? Like, are we getting them all replaced with that federal money, or is this getting us halfway there?
We are. In fact, what we've learned is that the availability of federal funds exceeds the need that the state of Vermont has. And we will be declining some of the federal dollars that we just can't spend.
It can only be used for lead.
Right, and others need it. And EPA has made some changes to eligibilities to open the eligibilities a little bit. There's details around that. I won't get into technical details around like what kind of metal is in the pipe, is it lead or not, or was it ever lead or not? So yeah, we feel good about that. We've just moved a couple of lead service line loans that are pretty big ones.
Yes.
Right, so these lead dollars are, they're 50% money to the community, so they borrow 10 million, they pay back 5. So good value.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And then as we said before, the contractual costs, decreasing in the contracting out because the dollars are in fact we're receiving less, we're moving less out the door. So you're going to see about $16 million in reduced contracts in the budget as well. Right. So again, ongoing operational and costs, salary benefits increase of 2.8 million across all base funding sources, 353,000 increase in ADS service level agreement, the core enterprise service costs, not expected, but there we are. 600,000 reduction in underground storage tank loans, funded by the Petroleum Cleanup Fund, and the 18,000 reduction in air monitoring pass-through, as well as mercury monitoring contract and CAMNet grant. So those are kind of the key budget takeaways for this year. Are there questions on any of those?
So is the 600,000 reduction going out or 600,000 reduction coming in for the underground storage? The underground.
Going out 600,000 less in loans that we'll be able to issue.
Do you only do loans out of that should be grant?
It is, I'm a little over my skis, but I'll do my best to answer. It's cost recovery dollars where we can put money out to help a Vermonter right away that needs help, and we just put it out there. Then if we're able to cost recover the dollars from the responsible party, whether it's that owner or the prior owner, or of the business, then we will do that. We also are able to make loans through the underground storage tank loan program. Those are, we do those.
So these are some, we can walk through any of these. These are prior fiscal year updates. We can just looking at the time and noticing the time.
One question I have about past work is on PCBs and schools.
Yeah.
That ran through LTC, right?
Yes. All funds are committed.
Right. Is my projects still happening though? Are you still overseeing some projects?
Yes, still seeing project happening. Yeah.
And testing has done.
Slow. We slow. We do not have funds right now to continue to do testing. So
Okay.
Are there schools contacting you or you're just that's kind of that once there's more capacity they would come up or are you lining up schools like on a waiting list?
it's a live conversation in the building as to how the program moves forward. So I wouldn't want to get firstly in front of that and second the technical pieces of it and sort of the tempo and staging. I would have to get our director of the waste management division to talk about that, which we can. We have a long list of unmet need already for schools that have tested.
Right.
All the dollars that the department has through last year's one times are staged up.
Right.
They're going, remediation's happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions on previous years, prior fiscal year updates? You can walk through them or come back and talk to them. I can do the high level just quickly. So or we could move through the special fund operating statement also. I will make quickly just for the prior year fiscal updates, because I think it's important to just touch on some of these one-time appropriation. So Act 27, one-time appropriation for CAPO. I do want to say that the CAPO process has, from last summer to now, we've gone through the stakeholder process, and we're working forward with standing up the program, making sure those dollars are spent. And I know that we continue the conversation around the report that is required from our stakeholder process, that there may be some things that come out of that conversation that we will be having in the near future.
Where are your CAFO regulation funds coming from?
The one-time appropriation that we had,
That was to set it up because of the
That was-
transfer.
yeah.
So ongoing, where will they come from?
We've got, you appropriated base funds for staffing for the program, which we've gotten all set up and it's.
We take it from ag and give it to you guys. Well, I can't remember what we did.
I'm not sure.
I think you had 300,000 of base funds for the CAPO program for added staff.
Right.
So on top of the 850,000 one time.
But there isn't a revenue source. You know, we can look at that
I
later.
mean, there'll be fees.
Paid by who?
Paid by, applicants to the CAFO program. So folks that are involved in the program would be paying operating fees. That's, out in the future once.
Are they
individuals.
also paying fee, are they money going to the clean water fund? No.
Well, so if I can jump in here, so just to, on one point, I seem to recall we had the CAFO bill last year that there was no sort of concurrent reduction in ag that matched the increase in funding for DEC to take on this work. I remember there was,
Yeah,
which was like notable
yeah.
at that moment. But then one of the questions that I have about this is because if it's supposed to be, there is a bill right now that we stripped out a portion from the miscellaneous ag bill that was about.
James and the governor's recommend.
Right, so
Have no fees per kickoff.
yes, the governor's recommend,
Reduce their fees per year.
right, I think it was just for medium and
That would be
large,
in the large term, did not have.
right, it's for everybody, but nonetheless, it's sort of with a corresponding increase from, I think to DEC, and I think it must have been for base.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what the
For
fiscal
staff.
note indicated, was that there was an increase to
General fund in agriculture. It was for the agriculture, yeah, it was.
but was for ag, it was not for.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's for dairy farm.
interesting, okay. In which case, like if it's made up, if the revenue source is CAFO fees, but I'm wondering if you all can survive on the fees that are not from the large and the medium CAFOs too.
Is there a small?
I'm not sure. if
No.
There's not, okay,
Yeah,
so
LFO
then,
and MFO fees would go to
Right.
the Agency of Agriculture. Once a farm comes into the CAFO program, they'd be paying fees into the department, but that's not, we're not there yet.
okay,
So
those fees are ag fees,
those were ag fees,
Yeah.
not,
not.
oh, okay,
What were you expecting them to move over?
we did not advocate for that one way or another. We have base fund.
I'm just wondering how they've been used in the past. So I know the CAFO fees have come in previously and then ag has used them for what? And then,
Well, we're gonna have that again.
yeah, we're gonna have to, yeah.
Because there was some confusion around that.
okay, so. Never,
So ag will come in, but yeah, it would
Yeah.
be, you weren't expecting any of those funds to continually fund the position that you hired. I think the money was going to the clean water fund that ag also.
Right, so the Agency of Agriculture, they can speak to their appropriations for sure, but there's clean water fund support for them. There's fee support from their farms into the ag water quality programs. That's all I can say.
So
about that.
that's what they're proposing, to zero out the fees, but backfill with general fund. So they'll still be doing the clean water work on the farm, but underneath the general fund, but
Yeah. For us, it's the program is supported by base funding from you all now, for the positions that are in there. If I may, I think there was a question you had on emissions repair. Did you want to ask that or?
I asked the secretary.
Okay, very good.
In here.
Okay, I wasn't here.
General, yeah, she gives the general walkthrough that there was some money available. They took all of it, but there was 200,000 that felt should be remaining.
Right. That had been encumbered and was available for those repairs. So.
And if there's ever any new data on an uptick of the program, Transportation Committee would also be interested in getting that data as it comes in the future.
So I just wanted to make sure you had what you had asked.
Yeah.
There's another question right on 121. Was there a question on 121 positions at all or?
Public safety.
Let's see, yeah.
Yes.
Safety positions.
Oh, yeah, is that where we have the food safety?
Yeah. Correct. They had authority, but some it's already had expired, and so this was.
Do you have
A few more
anything to say about
positions.
those positions?
I believe they're in the House version. There's a couple positions in the House version that result from the activities in the House. They put those in there and they got them.
Yeah, I think that's why we wanted to ask you, is like, so the House put these in, the governor didn't recommend them. I know that you have to follow the governor's recommendation, but do you have anything to say, like, could you operate with that? Is there anything that you could say without getting in trouble?
Sure. No, understood. It's not,
That's right.
it's certainly not a matter of getting in trouble at all. You know, there's a bit of a history to it. So we provided testimony in the House and multiple committees, but basically Flood Safety Act, major piece of policy, after the floods of 2023, DEC's on record requesting 18 positions to do the full body of work. We received authorization for 15, base funding for 11. So we were able to go forward and fill the first tranche of 11 positions. We then came back during adjustment and requested the base funding true up to get the additional 4, and we're not successful with that. So in our deliberations with House Environment and the other committees on the other side, we were asked, well, why is there slowdown in getting this work done? Because we had some date adjustments on the table with a bill that appears now to be tabled. And, you know, essentially we're honest then as we are now, which is it takes a lot of time and a lot of communication with Vermonters to put new regulations in the ground that would affect 45,000 parcels around thousands of miles of river. We want to do it right. From the passage of the act, we didn't quite have the resources that had been requested. And so we're doing the best we can with the resources we have. And I think the House's response is to put those 2 requested base positions into their proposal. So
To speed up the work.
if that survives the budget process, they will be used well, but it's not in the governor's budget.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any last comments?
I think we have one more slide we had a special fund operating slide. I just want to touch on that. So if there are, we can always come back and answer questions or provide answers in writing. So those are our special fund operating statement. And can talk more in detail, understanding what the time is right now. Or if there are more, I'll go start handle.
We'll contact you if we get through this, if we work through this and have any other.
We welcome that.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you for your support of the work that our programs do on behalf of everybody.
Very much.
Exactly, that's all.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
For more conversations.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, of course.
All right. That's fine.
Okay. Well, listen.
I left.
The chair is one, sir. So like, oh, sorry.
Can you change your guy?
You
Can you allow to move your flexible guy? I'm not touching. Yes, Commissioner, hello, Commissioner, welcome. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Thank
It's
you.
okay.
Yes.
It's okay. We'll let you in, even though you're.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Good to be here. Jason Batchelder, and I'm Fish and Wildlife Commissioner. The last time I was here, I was in Misty's shoes, so it's great to be back. Thank you for hosting us. I'm joined by Elizabeth Stratton. She's our director of our admin services division and our business manager, and Steve Gomez from the secretary's office. So I'm going to try to angle myself so I can see the slides. I'm just going to run along with you here.
You're also welcome to sit up at the table if you want to hear either. If you want to, that's up to you.
It's you're okay. Yeah, as long as I can glance over. Yeah, we've got a few slides muted, which you can see, but we'll likely skip over in the interest of time. We have a couple of efforts that are underway that I want to linger on. One of them being our area license, and then a couple of financial restructuring efforts that the department is undergoing that I think will be of special interest to you, both in the moment and in future considerations. So to get right into it, this is the 2027 Governor's Recommend. This is a skin of our teeth budget, I don't mind saying, with projections proving challenging over the next few budget cycles, as I'm sure the secretary alluded to. I'll likely go over some of these quickly, like I mentioned, so we can have some time to get into some details on some others. So I'm going to jump to slide 3. So our mission, as many of you may know, is the conservation of fish, wildlife, and plants and their habitats for the people of Vermont. We dedicate a great deal of time providing quality fish and wildlife-based recreation, reaching Vermonters with the best possible information about these resources. I think I'm very lucky to be with this staff again. You may know I was a warden for 20 years and didn't get to see the department through the lens that I do now. So a huge benefit of being back, but we do a tremendous amount beyond what the public generally sees. Going to slide 4. So many people are surprised as to what we can serve. So natural communities, fish, wildlife, the habitats that support them, plants to invertebrates. We like to say that we are bugs to bobcats and muskies to maples, and all the natural settings that they need to thrive. But over the recent years, it's become more evident to me and to many others that we're more of a lands and habitat conservation organization than we are an organization that supports the traditions, even though that's very present in our lives. We are fully understanding of what allows these traditions to thrive and its sound habitat and connectivity. We serve all Vermonters, hunters and anglers, and from down to people who simply just like to look at wildlife from a distance. We work closely with towns and communities, as well as providing direct assistance to landowners who are looking to improve habitat in their properties. We take a lot of commitment in future generations, and we work to ensure that the healthy and thriving wildlife and wild places that we enjoy will be here for our children and grandchildren. I realize I'm going pretty quickly here, but happy to linger over anything that's like.
We'll stop if we have any questions.
Sure. I'm on slide 6. So this is our organizational structure here. With Elizabeth being head of our administration division, we have wildlife, fisheries, warden service, and outreach. We have approximately 144 positions, 38 of those being seasonal and temp.
How many wardens?
The warden service itself has 44 employees, depending on the day, but there are about 41 wardens, including management, which is at 6 right now. So field wardens there at about 35. You think about days off, military leave, and family leave, it can be lean at times. We are going to slide 9. So here's our budget overview by program. We have fish division, which is our by numbers our most expensive, and the warden service, wildlife, outreach and education, administration, and we've broken out lands acquisition, which falls under a couple divisions. We broke it out for clarity, just simply to show how much money we spend annually on acquiring habitat, wetlands, critical habitat communities. But we do a great deal of work there, responding to and acquiring open parcels of land for all of the reasons that you understand.
Are you gonna talk about slide 8 at all?
Sure could. So you can see we have in years past supported the LCI Derby 2025 and current fiscal year that we are in. You can see one-time appropriations down the line from non-dedicated special funds or
Slide this way.
oh, okay. Sorry, if there are those who can't see it, I think that the version that we have being presented doesn't present the muted slides.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's it.
You want to use mine?
Well, I wondered if there's, so last year we had that 185,000 for the help with the financial restructuring.
Yeah,
It's just like, how's the financial restructuring going? Maybe you're gonna talk about that
I
later.
do have a slide on that one coming up. Absolutely. But
Yeah, that's fine. And I assume there's no, maybe I'm getting mixed up with public safety, but there's no ongoing need for radio equipment.
there is an ongoing need for radio equipment. We've asked for that in the CDS space. Not sure where it's going to land. We did not build that into our budget this year, as far as I understand.
Okay. And you don't have, no, and you don't have the, like a fund that you're putting money aside for say for radios when they're needed.
Correct, we do not.
You know, wardens, or I'm sure you use other radios, but mainly for the wardens.
It's mainly for the wardens, and it is that their radios are a public safety tool. That is essentially what they are used for.
We talked to public safety about trying to set up, can't remember what we're calling it, but
Capital.
yeah, like a capital fund and a capital program so that we don't have to come up. It's not a surprise when we need 80,000 per year, but there's a bigger number. Same with the firearms.
Sure.
Which has, so you just like every 7 years you're gonna be replacing, you're gonna set aside money every year for it.
Sure.
Like a depreciation fund too. But you don't have anything like that.
Not to my knowledge, no. I appreciate you considering it. It's more and more frequent as technology advances, but it's an adaptive shift for us to think more rapidly about this kind of big ticket item. But I'm excited that you're thinking about it, and I appreciate it.
How are the walleyes doing? I know there's people out here that cared about that.
Walleyes are doing well. We captured a bunch of broodstock yesterday in the Foley River, and they're off to their next stop at the culture stations to be. I think I even have a slide on it today.
Right.
Maybe I don't, but they're in the first round of capturing broodstock as we speak. They're captured and being stripped, as they say.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's happening as we speak.
Doesn't sound good.
Maybe some walleye that agree, but the overall big picture, it's a huge benefit to the state. Walleye brings in a tremendous amount of income. I couldn't recapture the number for you, but they're bordering on a mystical fish that bring in technical anglers. They're also very, very good table fare. People love to eat them. I love to eat them. I don't get to fish for them as much as I'd like. And they're only native to a few places in Vermont, so we distribute them in a few areas, and there's some natural reproduction that's taken hold. But when there's an established population like Lake Carmi, the fishing pressure that we see there is extraordinary for these fish, and they are self-sustaining. In Carmi, Chittenden Reservoir, Lake Salem, Little Salem, Clyde Pond, and Lake Champlain.
So running.
Since we're on that topic, would you consider the investment that we put into that and Lake Champlain, the LCI Derby? How would you consider the return on investment for walleye percent? Well, for the whole fishing program, the fish culture program.
Sure. As we stand here today, we're evaluating this entire system through the the McMillan Associates consulting firm that is looking into our hatchery system. They have come back to us with early reports that we are among the top fish culture systems in the country, from first glance through to this moment. The return on investment is difficult for me to capture, not being an economist. But the fish that we produce, the fish that are reared on behalf of our MRCF, management requests for cultured fish, are based on angler satisfaction. And so it's a direct correspondence to what people say they want in the landscape. People are very happy with that fish. Our fish are beautiful. Fish bring in an incredible amount of anglers on an annual basis. Speaking walleye centric for me, I think the program I know the program is among the best in the country, and I think that program pays for itself in spades. I couldn't imagine living without it. I do think McMillan is going to expose some pressures that we put upon ourselves to put out fish that I'm not sure we can catch. Say we put out 1 million fish a year. I'm not sure the actual number. I'm not sure if we are demanding that much from ourselves. So I think that's going to be exposed. But I think as far as our infrastructure goes, as far as our staff goes, as far as the fish we put out, it's 100% worth what we're spending. And if you look at the budget, and I'll show you a slide with the fish culture budget on it, you'll see that we've been living, I don't know if I actually exposed this, but we've been living within our means in a similar budget for almost 20 years now, over 20 years. And it's only personnel costs and benefits that have been going up. They've been retrofitting their buildings with solar. They've been going to, like everyone has LEDs. They've been cheaper fish, lower phosphorus fish, or fish food, excuse me, cheaper fish food, lower phosphorus fish food, cheaper ways to produce the same amount of fish. And they've been living within this budget simply because we are looking at a decline in Vermont's demographic. It's not producing the anglers that we used to have, but we need to keep up. And personnel costs are what drive most of this. And so yes, the answer is yes. I think that the juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to our hatcheries. Absolutely.
One of your predecessors was proposing to close one of the hatcheries. The department just backed off of that proposal. And that's study.
So the governor's recommend does not include a closure. So for some of the benefit of the committee that may not know, there has been a closure on the table since for 25 years. Bald Hill has been looked at for closure since Eric Palmer, the current fisheries director, since day one of his tenure. It hasn't happened, right? Because we don't eventually get there as a staff. But he said this is going to be a reasonable place for closure. There are many points in society and within the department that disagree with that, and we don't get there. They have been able to financially and in a responsible way manage these fish for that amount of time, and so we haven't seen the need. As you know, the closure in Salisbury was not entirely financially related, but that has been put to bed. Salisbury it's been taken off the table for closure. We are experiencing a staff shortage there and at Bald Hill as well. That we're not sure what McMillan is going to expose as far as need goes there. But yes, there was a hatchery slated for closure. Every one of the last 25 years just wasn't in the limelight. Sure.
You're going to get there because I cheated and looked ahead. And I see you did rip a position at the end weed.
We did.
And I see that crossed out in here.
Correct.
So it's back.
It's back. Yep. We were fortunate to get our DJ fund. So our essentially our federal aid money comes in every year. It came in at a much higher number this year than we've ever seen. It was a record. And the secretary was able to testify, to go to Commissioner Gresham, amend the governor's recommend and pull this back. Thankfully, this was not something that we wanted to go through with the governor included. It was just our last option. At the 0 hour, Christmas Eve, I think it was, where we were hitting these ADS costs that we could not we had level set that was the third time we had the level set. And so, that was our last ditch reaction. And we had done, as you know, Commissioner Herrick had done many cuts to programs. We couldn't sustain that any longer. We had to go for the personnel, but this DJ money, this federal aid money, was a boon. It was gratuitous. It was nothing to do with me or anything. Just simply,
Is that a one-time?
I know you talked about this, but if this is a year-over-year one-time money, is that right?
Yes, it's the annual apportionment, and so we have to spend those funds within 2 years.
So we're gonna have to revisit this in 2 years.
But it's federal, it's all federal.
It's federal. And we have to reapply, is that it?
It's an ongoing application process.
Okay.
States based on angler numbers get an apportionment. We are at the max apportionment of what's received every year, but it changes every year on certain criteria. This year just happened to be the record amount of money we've ever gotten.
How about Bald Hill and, I mean, Salisbury, I can see that the vacant position hasn't been filled since forever, as long as I can have been appropriations even in the House. But now that it's, open, it's gonna remain open apparently, and we're putting money into repairs of the building. Did I see that somewhere? Maybe the Capitol bill?
The Capitol bill, yes. So Bald Hill is experiencing a vacancy at the moment, right? We're using Bald Hill as vacancy savings. There's a manager position that was filled and the staff position was left vacant. So there was a three-man show. It's now a two-man show.
That was going to be a question, Mike. Can you succeed with two men in a hatchery like that?
They are making it work. I don't think it's as comfortable a place as it was when we had 3 people there. They're making it work. They're 2 extraordinary staff, and they're making it work. And it is walleye rearing season, so I know that it's getting difficult to manage. They have the ability to hire a seasonal year over year, and that seasonal, I believe, is the process of being hired. That takes some of the pressure off. But currently, yes, it's manageable. It's not as bizarre.
What that vacant position, what dollar wise, what does that cost to fill that position? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. We could probably give you an educated guess.
127.
Huh?
127
127
is the cost.
127
with benefits,
yeah,
and insurance. Yeah.
How about Salisbury? That's a management position, right?
It is a management position. That would be more, but again, that one hasn't been built in a while.
And how many people are operating that?
There are 3 at Salisbury.
I'm not sure actually.
We were there last week. There were 3 people there. Could have been someone on a day off, but we can certainly find that out for you. And I should know it. I just haven't been to Salisbury.
No, that's all right. I just will give you an idea.
Sure.
Okay, I'll shut up for a while.
No, question.
So I know we're pressed for time. I'd love to jump to slide 11 and just to give you some background on our area license, because I know this is going to come around to you folks in a couple different ways. So this area license is an effort that has been in the ether at Fish and Wildlife for untold 30 years. And it's essentially in a very condensed version. This is a license that we have been granted permission by the administration to go after, that applies to an extraordinarily narrow subset of individuals. It's fishing access areas and paddlers. So
Fishing access areas and what?
and paddlers. So I'm just giving you the area, and I'm giving you the people. So currently, fishing access areas are largely ruled. It's all ruled on a federal system. We have rules that react to these federal regulations, and I say this to tell you that there are very few things that can happen in a fishing access area. You can You can launch a vessel or an ATV in the winter to go fishing or hunting. You can park to do those activities, and that's pretty much it. We allow paddlers, even though there's no system for paddlers to pay in. They can buy a habitat stamp currently, but other than that, paddlers are essentially using these access areas, and we want them there. Believe me, they're using these access areas and not paying into the system. So this area license is fishing access area. It does not apply to hiking trails or other fish and wildlife lands or other state lands. It's simply a license to access our fishing access areas to help pay for the infrastructure costs that are incurred by use. This money that we would like to recoup by selling this license would not necessarily go directly to those areas, those access areas. They would go into the budget, but they would most certainly be used like we use money now to mow and plow and build kiosks and to fund our budget. So as you may know, H 933 stands to repeal the authority for us to set this license. And
So just the 933, it's not in the budget. That's the miscellaneous tax bill.
correct, it's a miscellaneous tax bill. We have there is a slide where we are anticipating revenue in over the course of the next 4 years, starting at a income level of $50,000 upwards of $290,000 outwards of 4 to 5 years from now. But this is an opportunity for us to build a significant portion of our budget in now, and we certainly love to take questions on this. I think when the press hit on this, I was on vacation and I wasn't able to react to the press as I would have liked to, but it came out as sort of a state lands use fee, right? And that didn't land well with people, and I completely understand that and take responsibility for it. But this is simply our desire to charge a very small group of individuals a license fee to use something that anglers and hunters have been paying into since before I was born.
And the wildlife watching part is the part that I get more questions about. Like,
Yeah,
so so that's why I think people think it means anywhere.
sure.
So is that only if you're watching wildlife from a boat?
Actually, I'm just kidding. No, so if you were to launch a paddlecraft from that access area and to do whatever you wanted from that access area,
Doesn't matter.
it wouldn't matter.
Because you're using the boat ramp, but it's
Using
the
the boat
access area.
Yeah, and taking up a parking space, right?
Right. So then if you're watching.
Sure.
Right.
And if you bring up a wonderful point, though, so currently, if someone was launching a kayak going fishing, there's no fee, there's no nothing. You got your fishing license. Fishing licenses would currently be exempted. Hunting license would be exempted. A motorboat registration would exempt you from this because they pay a significant portion of the fees that go to these access areas. And so it's simply folks who would be otherwise just using the ramp. And the fun part about it is you could go 2 doors down to your buddy's camp and launch and spring. So you wouldn't have to use this because it's been purported that this is an imposition on folks. Well, I have to pay this fee. Well, you don't. You can just go to a place that doesn't say Fish and Wildlife on it, and then launch from there for free.
And so there, for enforcement, a warden might be there and just asking people for the license that don't have a boat.
All passive. That's right. We've committed already.
Boats have the license on.
They've got the numbers, they're good to go, which a warden would check, right? A warden would check the numbers on the side of the boat. A warden would check life jackets. If a person wasn't fishing or if they were coming in, they would ask, do you have an area license? And if they don't, we're committed to a very soft rollout of this to say, look, there's a QR code there. We'd love you to buy one of these.
And what would the fee be?
$20. I've been saying between 15 and 18, but I'm just going to say 20.
Because
we don't
adopted
actually.
the rule, but you haven't gone through.
We have not gone through rulemaking
Okay.
yet.
But you're planning on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, this is per boat because I see a lot of kayakers who pull them with a van and they've got like 12 kayaks on a trail here. So this is per kayak, what you're talking about. There's only one person using the space, but there's 12 kayakers going into the water here.
That's correct. So in that particular scenario, it would be 12 people scanning a QR code and having that. Well, you imagine this being electronic on a device. You scan a QR code, have it in your pocket. It's got a, just like a fishing license would have. To the contrary, though, if this was a party barge, there would only be one registration required, and everybody on that party barge would be covered. But if you were paddling your own craft, there just wouldn't be any way around it otherwise. So, but that scenario hasn't been brought to us yet, so that's good. Yeah, thanks.
So I got another question. I'm going to yield to my, I stand to my left because I don't want to, I want to finish the presentation because I have a question for you. It's probably not on here. So,
Okay.
Well, and also recognizing that we're sort of running out of time and we can have more conversations about this.
And I'm
Because-
happy to stay up.
Okay, because there's so much of what we're talking about here also sort of overlaps with what we had been talking about down the hall in 224, which is not moving forward, but you know, it makes me think about you know, the pressure on the parking lot and that you're saying that it would be per boat or per craft, but not like per parking space. And that anyway, just based on the conversation that we had down the hall, like the pressure on the parking spaces is substantial. And thinking about you know, the other uses that are the other interests that exist in terms of using those parking areas in terms of decontamination or boat washing stations. And you know, so could someone theoretically buy one of these licenses and then just use their parking space to set up a decontamination, like to set up a decontamination station or to set up a boat washing station or you know, because if it's the license that gets you the use of the parking space, then there's other things there. Plus, I would just add, I think because it's interesting that we're talking about like paddle craft, but if I'm not mistaken, paddle boards are not included right now.
No, they actually are.
They are, okay, because that had been a point that we had discussed as someone had been cited as being on a paddleboard because they weren't fishing. And so anyway, it seems like there's more that could be worked out
Sure.
there. It feels like a big topic. I'll just say that.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
I can simplify it by saying that we're not anticipating changing any of the access area rules. So something that's currently not approved would not be approved even if you had an area license. You would still have to be doing something that we approve of. Me not being the person who approves, right? The rules would have to approve of your activity.
Paddleboards not allowed.
Paddleboards are allowed. They are, stand-up paddleboards are allowed. But picnicking, like picnicking has come up. Representative Dean used to make a big deal about picnicking, and I see him once, so I'm happy to talk to him about that. But no, you could, and you could also picnic if you were fishing, right? But picnicking itself is not an approved use. And I believe me, I did make these rules, and I know some of them are contentious, but buying an area license to park a decontamination station would not be approved, but we would give a decontamination station a permit 99 times out of 100. If it met the needs of the access area, and we do. But these area licenses would not give someone a pass to walk their dog, or to give another contentious example in 2026. But if you wanted to launch a craft to go do something out on the lake, whatever you want, it doesn't have to be fishing. It doesn't have to be.
It would be swimmers. I think swimmers use the boat access.
Yes, it's not an approved use. Unfortunately, we draw pretty hard on swimmers. We do a lot of press on swimmers in the summertime for liability issues.
It's a safety issue.
You don't want them around the boat launch.
It's
There's another odd one in there that was like
sailboard.
sailboarding, and that was like,
I think that one's still illegal, strangely.
it's illegal. Well, and I think that was sort of what prompted the paddleboarding situation,
Sure.
which I'm hearing you that it's allowed.
Don't put a
Well,
sail
that's-
on your paddle.
Stand
Don't put a
up.
sail on your
Okay.
paddleboard.
But
Yeah.
sailboarding.
So, yeah, anyway.
Very
Thanks
well.
to Doug.
Sure.
And if you want to go swimming, just get on a paddleboard, go out.
I used to wear a uniform. That was one of the recommendations.
Yeah.
Jump in the kayak. So paddle out, go swim.
Yeah.
You can't do it here.
Oh, you want to spend an hour?
You figured me.
This is unlike me to be late in the afternoon asking the question, but I'm dating myself here. Back in the day when the analyst permit system first came out, there was multiple members on it, whatever else. You actually had to put your hunting license number on the application back in, they were talking for the late sixties, whatever else. They, let me put it for ambulance permit, you don't have to attach your hunting license. And my question is, looking at the financial issues that Fish and Wildlife is going through, why not? Because I've been told, and I'm not gonna verify anything, that some people put in for ambulance permits just for different reasons. Doesn't stop them from putting into their permit and doing what they want with that permit. But at least they have to attach their hunting license number on that, so they have to purchase a hunting license at the very least and do what they want with their ambulance permit after that. Why does that not take place? Looking at money issues.
I do not know, Senator, but you bring up an amazing point, especially in a time where you're going to be experiencing the fall that we're going to experience. I'm implying that we're going to be harvesting antelopes deer with a high-powered rifle. Some people may be buying these tags for other reasons, right? It's a great point.
You have to buy that tag separate than your hunting.
You can apply for your tag and get it. And if you don't get it, you don't have to buy a hunting license. But if you had to attach your hunting license, you would have to buy your hunting license. So everyone's going to get a tag for the most part. Although this year with the way the system is set up, who knows? But there's generally an abundance. There was a time when there was an abundance of panelists permits. Now you can get more than one. I'm not going to work with the November season now. Maybe those can be very scarce also. But it's going to issue how many analyst permits?
In my zone, it's going to be 400. I don't pay attention.
We're about 5,500 in our zone. So
it'll be lower than that this year. Certainly lower.
So would that be the same issue for the moose permits?
Moose permits are completely separate, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, but is it the same issue where you don't have to attach your hunting license number?
You may apply for, I believe you may apply for a moose tag without a license. And I think and it's occurred to me that financially, probably not the best way to go. But if someone's from out of state, they want to wait till they win an ambulance permit before they spend the big money to buy their license. That's probably why we do it that way. To give an allowance to someone who lives in Kentucky, they apply for a moose permit. They don't have to buy that $100+ license first. They buy the $25 license, see if they get it. And then if they do, we do require a license purchase after that.
And I understand, and I appreciate that. But as a license holder for many, many years, who now is money free, I could be denied that analyst permit, and someone who doesn't even have a hunting could get that person. And I'm not hunting analyst deer this year.
We should talk about that. It's not her fault. I'm just saying she's the one I would talk to.
Senator Norris, do you feel the same way for the moose, or is it different? Senator Westman's showing a picture of a very large.
I think it's all or
That
nothing.
was in Essex County this year.
Because I'm holding a license and I don't get one, and I know someone who doesn't hold a license did get one. How am I supposed to do this? Force one?
Not good.
Not good.
But isn't the department making, that's a fairness issue more than a financial issue, isn't it? Because you're getting money when they apply, the $25.
I would say it's also a biological issue, not to expose a weakness, but I will. We want people that are hunting to buy these tags, and we are implying together that some people who may not hunt, who are opposed hunting, are buying these tags. From a biological standpoint, this would matter also to us. It's certainly, it has to have been studied at this point, but I can go to the deer biologist and the moose biologist, same person, and talk about this with our business office and just to see if it would be a policy change. I know some of this is policy and some of it is statute, but certainly I like this kind of conversation.
And just for your information, Senator Watts and I are working closely on 723. So
We're talking about it. Yeah.
I'm also at your service in case you ever want to talk about that.
Senator Brennan.
Just one question of my own and one for Senator Lyons. You answered the registration piece. Could you talk about Dingle, Johnson, Pittman, Robertson funds as they relate to those areas? How they're funded.
Absolutely. So the funds that we receive for the benefit of the committee, the funds that we receive from the federal government come with strings attached, and then they want to make sure that those funds are used in a way that they intend and that the department intends. So they require us to set rules, and we set rules to manage these access areas. And anything that strays outside of those rules is, as you know, deemed as loss of control. When they see loss of control in our audits, if we have an unapproved use that the state is allowing, that is deemed a misuse of the funds that are coming from the feds. It puts our ability to recapture that money in jeopardy.
Yeah. And that relates to unauthorized use.
Correct.
Of the access area.
That's right. Yeah. We have requests all the time for unapproved uses, and we can permit some of them we can't. Yeah, but some of them we certainly do.
Okay, what projects are important to you that might be in the capital? Senator Lyons would like to know. I think it's, she said 951. Is that the number of the bill? It's, no, that's our bill. That's our bill.
951 is the budget bill.
Page 952.
We already know what's important in 951. So in the capital budget, sure, asking, I guess.
I would have to get Andrea on the horn to answer that question for you. Right now, we've had two testimonies on capital. They both were generally seamless for us, but I didn't get the report out as to our priorities on them. I'd have to get back to you.
And I want to thank you on, I believe, I don't know who to thank, but I'll thank you because you're here. We didn't have to go searching for Walleye Association money this year and in the Ag Committee. You did that?
She sent me the form signed. He gets tired.
What about the LCI money?
And the LCI money's in there too. We used to, that was a battle every year and it's
They're
not
both in the
bad
House.
to do
They're
that.
both in the House. They're both in the House, but
Yeah. Governor recommend, right?
Or the LCI money is not the governor's recommended, but
it's
you may
in
know
House
something.
budget.
You may know something I don't.
Well, wait a minute. Did I see that? I just saw it somewhere.
I hope you did. It wasn't my doing.
House, was it in the House budget?
I did not see it in H 951. I did not see it in the House version. No.
not the walleye money.
I take that back. I'll give you
Always there.
half a credit.
Well, I think LCI, not LCI 25.
LCI was 30 Wallace, but 25.
Last one.
Yeah, year over year, the 30 is the walleye, the LCI money that we, as I led when we are too skinny this year to be able to wiggle that into those funds, but I'm happy to chat with you about
The
it.
House didn't fund the Morgan horse farm, so you could take that money.
99 cents.
$1.
1 cent.
Yeah, that's not good.
And I know you gotta go, but I did want to mention we have two financial, modernization / restructuring efforts underway. One is under fish culture and one is under our essentially our departmental, it's a departmental overview. One of them is with the Wildlife Management Institute, and one is with Macmillan that I alluded to earlier. Those are gonna wrap up here shortly. One in June, and one, we wanted to add, we added a state, and so we were hoping to be wrapped up by now, but that'll take us a little bit longer.
So you're expecting like the FY28 budget would have changes from the restructure?
I think that's accurate. We have, we need to dive into these results. And we have some reactivity built into, our special fund, and we want to be able to do this right. And so we're very lucky that we were provided this money to do these studies. We want to take them seriously and we want to react in an appropriate manner.
Just remember another question somebody brought up with me about state park. It's not really fish and wildlife, but forest and parks, I guess, a big question for them. Maybe you can help out. And then that is other states charge in-state, out-of-state for state parks, but we do not. But I'll ask Vince about that question.
Yeah.
And that they have considered that.
I don't know.
I will not think it's a yes.
We can certainly ask Danny about that for sure.
Okay.
It won't be today. I know she's indisposed.
Yeah. She was on mine earlier.
Okay.
I missed my chance. Maybe it's a way for other revenue for this.
Sure.
For A&R in general that we moved around.
Fish and Wildlife does. If it's a non-resident fishing license or hunting license, we should get more.
You charge more.
Significantly more.
And so do you have data on those to Senator Norris' point that may have received a permit or tag, but never reported? I mean, it could be of many reasons why they don't report, because they just couldn't hunt, or they didn't find the animal that they wanted to take.
Sure.
But is there data on like tags that were received, but no, they never reported a game, you know, they never went to our force.
I don't have that in my fingertips, but I've seen you're nodding.
I assume that's data that you would have.
Yes, I think you'd be after food didn't follow up with the purchase of a license. Is that what you're looking for as opposed to harvesting an animal?
Yeah, well, who got the tag but never harvested? Or I guess you could also say who got the tag and did by a license, but I guess that's the city.
The first one is, we call that BAH, which means bad at hunting.
Yeah, right. Well, it could be that.
The second one is capturable, because, yeah, you're right, we could buy, I'm bad at hunting, that you could capture that. But you could also capture someone who did not follow up with a license purchase afterwards, that's correct. Yeah.
But the tag is $10 and the license is, what, 30 now, or what is it?
I don't 28.
28, so that's the revenue we're losing is just that.
Right, but it'd be interesting to know how many
Oh,
people
yeah.
that is. Is that 10 people or is it 200 people?
I will look into that, I would love to know myself, so I can send you an email.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, send it to Lover.
Oh, sure, it didn't look like that. It was hard.
Any other last words?
No, just thank you for your support, thank you for the time, I love being here, thanks for all the great questions.
Yeah, thanks.
They don't work.
I don't know.